Hi, does your child have trouble being able to wait for something? A lot of time what a child might have trouble waiting for is waiting for you. So for instance, if they want your attention and you happen to get a phone call at that time, they might have trouble waiting quietly or patiently in some way for you to complete the phone call. That's a very common complaint that parents have, is what their child does in terms of their behavior during the time of a phone call. And there might be other times when they have trouble waiting, maybe in a waiting room when they're waiting for an appointment, or if they've asked you for something and you just want them to wait for some reason. You might be talking to someone else and you want them to wait until you've finished before you answer them, and they're having trouble waiting for you. Now, many children have trouble with waiting for their turn, and children with special needs have even more difficulty with this. So a child on the autism spectrum or with ADHD or some other kind of special needs might make it hard for them to wait. Now, if you've watched any of my other videos, or even if you haven't, I'm going to be explaining it again, you'll know that one of the things that I focus on is teaching the child what to do instead of the problem behavior. So if the child is being disruptive or whining or complaining, what we want to do is teach them how to wait. Rather than just say, stop yelling, or let me just talk on the phone in peace. We want to teach them how to wait. And to do that, we might need some help or props to do it. And one of the things I suggest is if your child regularly has this problem, that you actually start instituting a program where they're learning how to wait. So when they ask you for something, you might ask them to wait and have a visual support that you can use for this. And this is a picture of a hand. Now, I've also written the word wait on it for children who are able to read, and I've laminated it. So we just have a little laminated card here that's the wait card. So if your child asks you for something and you're trying to work on the skill with them, you can show them the card and say the word wait. So they're seeing it with a couple of different formats, the picture of the hand and the word, and they're hearing it said. And at first, you only ask them to wait for a few seconds. So remember, you're doing this preemptively. You're doing it at times when the problem behavior has not been triggered. So you just find different opportunities when they've asked you for something, and you ask them to wait. And at first, you just do it for a few seconds, and then you put the card down, and then you go ahead with dealing with their request. So if they've asked you for a cookie, you decide, this will be a good opportunity to get them to practice waiting. You say, wait. You just ask them to wait for a few seconds. You might not necessarily say that, but the practice would be to wait for a few seconds. You put it down and you hand them the cookie. And then over time, you would gradually increase the amount of time that you have. So you wait for them to be successful with waiting for 10 seconds, and then maybe the next day or a couple of days later, you're doing it for 20 seconds or 30 seconds, so that you can gradually be building up. Then you can also use that at other times. So for instance, you're on the telephone now, a naturally occurring situation has happened. You're on the telephone, your child comes up, and they've already practiced the skill, and you show them the card to wait. You can tie this into a reward system as well, so whenever they wait successfully, you can give them their token or the prize that they might have earned for waiting successfully. Now, there's another strategy you can use, but you have to be careful with how you implement this, especially with autism spectrum children who have difficulty transitioning from one activity to another. But I do want to describe it because it can be useful, especially if the child has to wait for more than a few seconds. So one of the things you can do is you can have some supplies that you regularly use for when a child needs to wait. You keep them put away at other times, but maybe when you're out, you might carry one or two things with you in a bag that you have handy. Or if you're in your house, you might have a special box or bag of special supplies that you put away for times, say when you're going to be in a phone call or talking to a neighbor who's dropped by and you're going to need to use the wait skill. So your child comes up to you while you're on the phone and you say wait, and you might hand them something. So for instance, here's an example of a good fidget toy. Now this is one that's very easy to carry with you and to have with you, but that you keep it put away at other times. And so then they have something to entertain themselves with while they're waiting. However, especially for autism spectrum kids, let's say the wait time is over and now you can go on, you don't necessarily just want to take it away, because that can cause a whole nother difficulty with transitioning away from an interesting toy to something else. However, you might wait until the interest is completed in that fidget that they have, and then put it away, and they don't get it again until they have to wait at another time. Another example of something you might give for a child who has to wait is something like this, which is has some goo that goes down in it. So it's basically a timer, but it's a very interesting to watch timer. So there's this blue goo that's going down from one section to another, and if a child's having to wait, it gives them something that they can look at while they're waiting. And interestingly enough, as I said, it's actually sort of a timer, so while the time is elapsing, they have something engaging to look at and entertaining. And again, if you use that for this particular purpose, then I would really suggest that after the child's completed playing with that, make sure you put it away and only use it during wait times, because otherwise the novelty will wear off and it won't be as interesting. So this is a skill on how to teach a child to wait, and remember, you want to gradually be increasing the time that you expect them to wait, and you want to rehearse it in many different settings before you need to implement it in naturally occurring opportunities. You know, that's a key to the child really learning the skill. And just another little tip before I end, and that is you could also do some video modeling with this. So video modeling is a great way for the child to see themselves being successful. So this would be an example where you ask the child to wait using their card that shows them the skill that they're working on. You might hand them a toy and they play with that while they're waiting. And someone else probably would do a short videotape of them successfully waiting. And then they watch themselves. So maybe you've just done a little quick video on your phone of it, and you show it to them, and you show it to them a few different times, so they're able to see themselves being successful waiting appropriately. And then you praise them for that, and they might earn, you know, a prize or a treat or a token if you're using a token economy system. So my name is Barbara Lester. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I have almost 30 years of experience working with children and adolescents and their families, and I specialize in working with kids on the autism spectrum or with similar kinds of cognitive needs. If you're interested in these kinds of suggestions, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is called ASD Specialist. Thanks for stopping by.